Welcome back, Nerdies. This is your boy Tim, bringing you Rohan and Natalie, two new members of the Nerdy Sports crew, which will be with us weekly. How you guys doing?
Doing good. Today's a good day.
Today's a great day.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
This is a Nerdy Sports podcast. It's our Nerdy Sports podcast brought to you by a bunch of sports nerds. So I brought in two of my closest friends that love to discuss sports with me. Natalie is a bit of a Mets fan, which rivals my Philadelphia Phillies. Why don't you speak a little bit about what got you into sports and what makes you a bit of a sports nerd like us?
I don't come from a sports family, but my godmother took me to a Mets game, and that was actually my first game. I was 7 years old, hence me being a Mets fan. And the funny part about all that is that my father's a Yankees fan, so there was always a divide in our family, and my sister also being a Yankees fan. So that's where I got my love for sports and watching sports. In high school, I played a little softball, I ran track, and I just kept the sports going alive, also working in sports production, which I currently work for now. So keeping it alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's usually, get your family around, and that's what really keeps you interested in sports. For me, myself, it was all about my brother. My parents couldn't really care less about sports, but he's a Yankees fan, a Jets fan, Islanders fan. So I've picked like other cities to kind of rival his teams. That's awesome, though.
Or...
Yeah. He told me to take my time. So I want to pick like good organizations that I felt like could, I don't know, I guess put together a good team and win the championship rather than just like whoever my brother liked or whoever my father liked. So I'm definitely quite an outlier in that perspective. Being a New Yorker, and most of my teams are Philadelphia or Miami, like the Miami Heat. Yeah. How about you, Rohan? I know you're a big Kobe Bryant fan. We've discussed many a times about Kobe and Michael Jordan and that grit. But what makes you so passionate about sports?
I grew up with sports since I was a kid. I remember I moved to the U.S. in '99, and when I moved out there, one of the first memories was going to soccer and really meeting new friends. So I think that's what sort of sports brought to me, brought a joy, that competitiveness. We used to play soccer. We were moving up in sort of ranks out there, so it was fun. And I think from there it just grew. We to watch, Sunday football. So it was sort of part of the culture, and it was, I think being a kid for me, I think.
Sure, I could see that. It brings the kid back inside you again, right? To get excited about something that really is meaningless at the end of the day, but we put so much purpose behind it because it gives us joy. At least for me, it gives me a sense of relief from things like politics, let's say, like the election today and all that. It's a bit of a headache, exactly. A nice escape. So that's good. I'm glad you could introduce yourself to the audience. I'm really looking forward to us getting together weekly to discuss whatever happens in this world of sports. So let's first start off with the last time we spoke, Liverpool just won the Premier League. Today, Bayern took a monster lead in the standings, beating Dortmund. So I know, Rohan, you're happy there. But I want to focus mainly on the most recent championships, which that was the NHL, MLB, and NBA. So obviously we had the Tampa Bay Lightning. They were the preseason favorites going into the season. They ended up, winning the Stanley Cup. And they were plus 650. So just generally speaking, next year, the two favorite teams are Colorado and Vegas, which are both plus 750. So pretty much about the same as what most top-ranked teams are going to be going into the season, which is very different than what happens with baseball and basketball, where you have teams that are highly projected to win. For example, with the NBA, it was mainly Clippers, Bucks, Lakers, and that was it. At least from my perspective, I thought the Lakers would win, and they did. No surprise there. And LeBron got his fourth championship to, put a little cap on that resume. Hopefully another decade to come before he retires. But I'm curious to see, let's start with basketball first. How did you guys feel the bubble went in Disney?
I thought it was a great idea. I mean, I know it kind of sucks to the players that they couldn't travel out, see their families and all that. I know a couple of them stressed the fact that, you know, they were going a little stir crazy. The longer the season went, the longer the players, you know, stayed in the season and kept winning, which is great, but the longer they stayed there. In terms of like containing the you know, containing COVID and stuff, it was a great idea. I don't think, you know, there were 0 cases throughout their entire season. So it was good in that sense. It was good for the fans also that you know, there was continuous basketball going on, unlike other seasons for other sports that, you know, canceled game here and there. So that was good on that. I thought it was great. I mean, I thought, yeah, it was awesome idea. I don't know. Obviously, they're not doing that for this upcoming season next month, but it should be interesting.
Yeah, it would be hard to do that with the full season. That's what the MLB had challenges with. It's like, how do you get 30 guys per team to isolate, which the NBA was able to get 1 bubble. The NHL was able to have 2 bubbles. And I think that was the goal at the end of the day, was to create a bubble-like atmosphere to limit the spread of the virus. And having 0 cases, 0 positive tests, that's, you know, tip of the cap to Adam Silver, I think. How about you, Rohan? What were your expectations going into the year? Who do you think would have won the championship in a more typical standing? And how do you feel that the season went?
I think in terms of the way the NBA handled the bubble, I think they handled it perfectly. Like, to be honest, as soon as one of the first cases of COVID hit, Adam Silver shut everything down. We lost a couple of months, but, you know, they figured out a plan and they went in and they executed on it. I think that's the way to go. Even for, like, I'm thinking of the NFL these days, and it's like, the NFL is like, yeah, the worst case scenario. They're trying to take all the COVID precautions, but nothing is working. You know, you have.
Don't even get me started with
everything falling.
Yeah, I'm sure you know well,
like,
Natalie.
It's so hard.
Each week, it's another team that has crazy. A few more positive tests. And in the beginning of the season, the Tennessee Titans were like the scapegoat. Now all of a sudden, it's the Las Vegas Raiders. And I just don't know how you get, similar to, like, you know, basketball is a more confined roster. You only have like 10, 12 guys, 15-man roster typically is. But with football, you have a 53-man roster, right? Like, how do you limit the spread? And what could the NFL do, Natalie?
They had a couple protocols going on before the season began, and some of that just went out the window. So it was either some of the coaches not wanting to follow some of these rules or anything. I mean, I thought it was freaking ridiculous. Like, however, with NFL, it's very difficult to do a bubble. You have 1 game a week, you know, and the intensity of the game for NFL, for like the players, is a lot different. So just trying to figure out how they travel and stuff. I don't think a bubble will work for them. However, you know, they did not do a good job or currently are not doing a good job containing, you know, every week there's a game being rescheduled. Every week there's like a new case, a new team, and shut down here and there. And they're even thinking of, you know, before the Super Bowl, they're thinking of not having that 1 week break where they have the Pro Bowl. They're actually thinking of adding an extra week and making it an 18-week season. Don't know where in their freaking right minds they're trying. Why add an extra week when basically you're canceling games left and right? Like, you're just driving these freaking players crazy. You're just trying to extend the season for what reason? We'll probably end up having Super Bowl in March with all the shit that's going on.
Honestly, everybody's afraid of the NFL. I don't think the NFL needs to worry about finishing the season in February, March, or April. Whatever they need to do, they're going to get it done. I have no doubt about it that the NFL is going to do whatever they need to do to finish off the season. 100%. I think the 18-week is just to add a little bit extra leeway, just in case they need an extra bye. Or let's say like the Steelers and the Titans already had their bye week before the bye weeks even started. Let's say they had another positive test and they have to delay that week, they probably just need a little bit of flexibility to reschedule a game and just to have another week. But honestly, even if it was a 19, 20-week season, I think they could finish it off. It's just a matter of like maybe one team's able to finish all their games in 17 weeks and you have like that one team that isn't able to finish their games. So fingers crossed, we're 8 weeks in and so far not too bad, but they got a lot to do. How about let's circle back to basketball. Oh, no problem. Yeah, go, Rob.
No, I was just going to say, what about multiple bubbles? That was one of the solutions that had come up, right? Like with going with multiple bubbles for the NFL, having maybe 4 bubbles of 8 teams each, and then, having all of their first 8 weeks and then having to change them. So I think, the NFL just had to look at it in a different sort of solution. But I think you're right. It's hard with 53 people to be able to even, keep them contained.
I mean, without fans, it shouldn't really be a problem. But as you guys have seen, I was watching Penn State, Ohio State the other day, and usually that's 110,000 seat stadium, white out, filled, packed, noisy, and there wasn't a soul in the crowd. And it was like, oh my God, it just felt earth-shattering. I'm watching basketball in the NBA bubble, like it felt natural. It felt cool. Like I got the set behind me. It just felt like
I like what
showcase. A little showcase. These are stars. That's what it is. And that's what LeBron does best, I think. He's a bit of a showman, and that's why he gets so much hate. But like at the end of the day, that's why he's getting paid $25 million a year, $30 million a year, whatever his salary is. And the NFL guys are super replaceable. Even the biggest stars in the game can be replaced. Dak Prescott, I mean, his team's got no chance to do anything, but he's going to replace. Everybody's replaceable. In terms of, the circumstances we have COVID, and they needed to force them into the Disney bubble. So we really had no choice. But I think based on the circumstances at hand, the NBA did it the best. And they have advantages at hand, like we've already discussed with the limited number of players. But in terms of the result, were you guys surprised by the LA Dodgers winning or the LA Lakers winning or even the Tampa Bay Lightning? Rohan, why don't you start first with your thoughts?
With the NBA, I wasn't. I think the bubble was actually perfect for LeBron. I think, minimal movement, like he didn't have to travel much there. You didn't have to face any crazy crowds. I think right now, LeBron can dominate anyone. Like even next year, if we're having a similar situation, I think Lakers have to be odds-on favorite because I think he has the leadership. He has all the qualities to just lead a team. Like I saw him take a team of, it was him and AD, but mainly LeBron who just carried a team of, Caruso, Rondo, and, he put them on his back for most playoffs. So I think for NBA, it was conducive to the people who you could see the people who really work hard, like Jimmy Butler, LeBron, and they're focused. I think for the MLB, I'm a little surprised. I didn't know what to expect from that MLB, to be honest. I think, MLB, I don't know if crowds really affect, batting, pitching. I'd love to hear your thoughts because I think you guys are bigger baseball fans.
Yeah, Natalie, I know that's your number one sport. How do you feel the MLB, result was, or how they handled their multiple bubble situations? How do you feel Major League Baseball handled this year of 2020?
I'm not a bit surprised the Dodgers won. I honestly thought they would be in the World Series from the start. The way the playoffs were handled was, smart as well. The way the season began, it was a little dicey because, the Marlins and other teams and, same thing with like the NFL. So we were like, oh, I hope it doesn't kind of have that kind of season, but it ended up pretty well. I honestly do think that not having fans affects the game at all. And even if they bring in like the background noise and stuff, there is a certain thing that, if you're the home team and you have the, you're at bat, obviously you have the fans going crazy for you, etc. However, when it's the when it's like the opposing team and the pitcher's on the mound, and they will still make noise just to kind of distract that. And, you know, it wasn't, I didn't feel like that same whole vibe. I felt like every time there was a batter at the plate, they had the background noise. It was, you know, just a double to left or something, noise, stolen base noise. So every little movement, okay, yeah, stolen base is great, but it had like that same momentum. It had the same, so I felt like, you know, if you have fans, you don't get the boos. And of course they're not going to play some boos and stuff in the background. And they did a better job, I feel like, at the World Series, you know, the way the fans and the background noise, how that was going, but it didn't have the same feel. I think as the season went on, for me as a fan watching at home, I kind of grew into the idea of what was happening and what was going on. And, you know, when the World Series was on, I was just as pumped and watching it. I was freaking excited, but it did not have that same feel. And as a fan, I literally go to maybe 1 or 2 baseball games a month. And I was very bitter not being able to do that. And it's tough. And I know some of the players probably feel the same. And they, you know, I think one of them from Tampa, Willie Adames, he had gone on a live and he was talking with one of his other teammates and saying how it's great how far they've gone, but they had wished that they had gone along the ride with their fans at the stadium. And it's a little hard, you know, but I think as a whole, MLB did a pretty good job during the playoffs, just having their 2 bubbles and during like the end of it, I guess.
I definitely agree with you. As a fan, it was challenging to get excited, I think, for a more normal fan, but us as nerdies, I was more hooked in than ever. I know the pace of play was better. I think strategically, players were able to communicate with each other a lot easier, especially with the limited crowd noise, which accelerated the like performance. I think everybody was able to perform at their highest, and those leaders, like Rohan mentioned about Jimmy Butler, those leaders were able to pull their teams forward. And in terms of MLB, we had the Dodgers and the Yankees were the preseason favorites. So obviously, I really don't think the Dodgers were really that big of a surprise to anybody. And even Tampa Bay, they were 4th in terms of the preseason odds to win the World Series. So really no surprise there. Now, as a Miami Heat fan, I really thought they were going to beat the Milwaukee Bucks regardless without fans, but I could see the perspective others would have that they were surprised with Miami. I mean, going into the season, they were 14th, basically middle tier, barely making the playoffs. But I was telling everybody, watch out for Bam Adebayo. That man can block anybody. And if there's anybody in the game outside of maybe like Joel Embiid or Nikola Jokic that could guard Anthony Davis, who I think is the greatest player in the game right now.
Awesome.
I think Bam's the guy. So I have hope for them for the future. They have a great team chemistry. As long as they don't rip up all of the young guys and get Tyler Hero out of there, I have faith. Yeah. But if I got to put my money, I got the Lakers next year. I got the Dodgers next year. I got the Chiefs this year. I think those front runners are going to win, and it's going to be even harder to overcome adversity with limited distractions, where you don't have a crowd to able, like Seattle has a little bit of a weakness there because their fan, you know, the 12th man, it's such an advantage. Same with the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs' skill level is just far superior to any other team right now. So
I think
How do you feel about the
organizations? No, I was just going to say organizations. I think we're seeing like good run organizations. Miami Heat is a good run organization. Yeah. Lakers are a good run organization. So are the Dodgers, you know, and so are the Chiefs right now. And we're seeing that. I think, you know, those teams are really getting highlighted during this, you know, no fans sort of bubble system.
Yeah, and it's like you could really focus in on the trash talk. You could just really focus on each little element. I think as a fan, as long as we could bring our audience a little bit better perspective, I think generally speaking, especially with baseball, it's all about that ballpark atmosphere. Like you look, I'm sorry for the podcast audience, but looking at Natalie's background, it's packed. There is 50,000 people in that stands. Yeah. And that's just such a major factor in your perspective as an audience member. And obviously with things like the election, every 4 years, you're going to have a dip in ratings just because of the election. But I was a little surprised that the ratings took that big of a hit, because I felt most people are working at home. Maybe they are just sick of watching TV. I don't really know what it was, but like, if you look at the numbers, it's insane. Like the World Series, 25% hit. The NHL Finals, 61% hit. The NBA Finals, 49% hit. Natalie, I know you work in the sports industry from a production angle. Do you feel like this is an outlier 2020, or do you feel like this is something that fans are going to slowly care a little less about sports?
It has been dropping for the past several years. So
yeah,
not just this year that's election and COVID. I mean, they did a Marist poll and they said that it's not COVID, it's not politics, it's not, the activism that's been going on with Black Lives Matter and sports. It's just less interest. And it has dropped like about 3% in the last 2 years. I don't know if it's like the new generation where they're just not into sports like that, or the fact that, I don't know, people are dropping cable and are not watching live sports, or there is a small tidbit. I don't really think that at the moment they have the ability also to track people that watch sports like on their phone. So, the Nielsen numbers kind of take a hit when people go digital. So that could also be a factor. But I'm still gonna watch.
Yeah, I know I'm still watching regardless. I'll watch if 100 people are watching it. It doesn't matter to me. I don't need 10 million people to watch a Giants versus Washington football team game. Like I'm good. I'll watch Bayern versus Dortmund. I don't care if anybody else cares about it. How about you, Rohan? How do you feel? This year went in terms of public perception, Black Lives Matter, the election. How do you feel as a sports fan, talking to other friends of yours? Do you see a lot more people interested in sports in like 2021, 2022, and so on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now you're starting to see, like, with players coming out more, even, the rookies who are coming out and, having a say, and, they're starting to make a difference. Joe Burrow came out this year. I think it was a couple of rookies who came out, and I was like, wow, like, this is great. Like, so yeah, I think there's definitely been a huge shift, and it started with players like, LeBron, and it started with all these guys who started standing up. And yeah, now you're seeing this younger generation coming in and really starting to, I know that the NFL has like a very, a rightist sort of, they have a very right market. That's why they don't like to get into, that's why they had the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick, and that's why they had to blacklist him and things like that. So I think I think from my end, I'm really liking to see the growth in the NFL, because at a certain point as a fan, I was a little sort of disheartened. I don't know if you guys remember, but the Texans owner, if you guys remember, he had said something really messed up. He was calling his team, like his players, inmates or something like that.
Yeah.
It was really bad for the NFL. Like, they were not in a very good place. So no, it's really heartening to see, and it really gives us hope for sort of the future that, hey, we're going to be able to fix this in the next 10 years and not have to go through another 50 years for change to happen.
They've been trying, like this year they had their campaign to vote, and they had the markings on the field with, let your voice be heard, vote. And so, the NFL, they've been trying to reamp their image in the last several years.
Yeah. I think since that whole Colin Kaepernick situation, and they saw like they handled it
They have
absolutely.
to. I mean, they have to.
Yeah, it was, and it's so fucked up. Like
they have to. Yeah.
Oh, this guy is still like, I can't believe they're Andy Dalton starting, in the NFL, and Colin Kaepernick doesn't have a job. So it's
bad.
Nick DiNucci was in there last
year,
and we had to watch Nick DiNucci.
Oh, he's so bad. He was so bad. I couldn't keep my eyes off of it. But my God. Carson's got his issues too. But at least he's got that zing, he's got those flashy throws about 5 times a game.
Like, come on, we have people out there who can, actually do the job that's required, and
with Colin Kaepernick, Madden gave you the flexibility to add him as a free agent. So they're definitely aware of it. And I think, the NBA had bad owners like Donald Sterling. They got him out of there. And, the NFL, same thing with, the Washington football team, obviously. They got to find a name. I don't know what that was about. It's like, here's our temporary name. We'll figure that out at a further date. But, I think you just get bad owners out, and that'll improve the image. And, honestly, I don't see the numbers drop 13% this year for the NFL, which is standard based on what happens every 4 years. I don't think they're impacted at all. And, I did hear from a few of my friends with the NBA, they're like, what's with these players' names on the back? That's not the real name. And I knew who they were because I watched so much basketball, so I don't even pay attention to what's on the back of the jersey. But I guess it's a perspective you could have. I mean, it absolutely is. But I just, for me, it wouldn't limit my need to watch the game or interest in the game itself. I want player empowerment. I want these players to feel as comfortable as possible. I mean, you see what happened when they even did something as simple as, they didn't test for weed this year, and the lack of travel and increased rest really helped them. LeBron was drinking wine with the team after each victory. They were loose and happy, and they felt like their voice was heard. And you saw, like, the play was at an all-time high, I think. If you compare it to any other finals games, I think the Miami Heat versus the Lakers was a riveting series. And same with the Dodgers versus Rays. I was glued in. But I think from a normal perspective, for most fans, it was impacted. And I'm curious to see what each league is going to do to get that TikTok fan, to get that, like, next generation where they're just looking at their phone. Even me, I'm 30 years old, but most of the time I'm watching sports, it's on YouTube. So they're not getting my numbers. And I watch sports all day, every day, as much as I possibly can. So I think it's just, like Natalie said, a matter of what they're looking at. So I think they're going to figure it out. Like, podcast audience, nobody felt was anything before. And then all of a sudden, Joe Rogan gets 1 billion downloads and gets this monster deal by Spotify. So we're going to slowly progress. And at the end of the day, Major League Baseball is probably going to be the last league to actually figure it out. But hopefully they can learn a thing or two from the NBA and other leagues.
Didn't the NFL have an Amazon contract that they were streaming, like, Thursday night football games
Thursday
on
night?
Amazon?
Yeah,
like, that was brilliant.
That was a
bring
monster
that
number
back,
too.
but put that in Sunday night, and everyone will be watching. I think NFL and all these companies just have to start shifting to a more, subscription based, online platform.
that was the smartest move they did a few years back with that contract. That's when they started realizing, I think it was like 5 years ago with the Thursday night, but I think that's when they realized that they have to grab an audience. And what they realized during research, they realized that is a younger audience that's out there watching online and on their phone. And this is where all the streaming platforms came about, and how you have ESPN Plus and CBS All Access, how they have a couple games on there, and Amazon and Yahoo was on there for a little bit as well. So that, I think, is a smart approach where they have to capture the younger audience, and it's trying to get those numbers now. And maybe in the next couple of years, they'll figure it out and bump up those numbers and the percentages of people watching, because sports will always be live, not on demand. And maybe that's another issue where everybody likes the whole on demand stuff where you're not home, you're doing something, and then you come back home at, let's say, 8 p.m. and you miss that 1 o'clock game. It's hard. It's hard if you're just going to catch highlights. It's unless you like DVR'd it, but by the time you're home and you watch back, everybody on Twitter or on Facebook has posted a X team won and stuff, and you're like, shit, you know, you didn't capture that. So it's a different thing where sports is live, and that
you're not going to rewatch it.
No.
At the end of the day, just like you're saying, it's all about those highlights. And I feel what the NBA does well is they have polarizing players. Whether you love him or hate him, you got LeBron James.
Yeah.
And then most people are in love with Luka Doncic, you know, rookie sensation that's probably going to win MVP in the next year or two. I got him for MVP next year. That's my pick for sure. But I'm curious to see, Rohan, what do you think Major League Baseball or even the NFL or even NBA, what do you think they could do to capture that audience, that younger audience?
Well, I think there's starting to get it. There's a shift, like Natalie's saying, where, you know, it's more highlights, it's more, you know, online sort of presence. And I think that's what players are starting to understand. Like, players are starting to have more character, I feel, than ever. People have their own Instagram, you know, people can follow them. You know, Tyreek Hill on the off season is going out and racing other wide receivers. Like, even though I don't give a fuck, but I'm still tuning in just to take a look at that. Like, that's honestly pretty fucking cool.
You get Josh Allen versus Patty Mahomes deep ball throw. I'm watching that. They need to add extra stuff. Absolutely. I definitely agree with that.
Exactly. And now you're starting to see, like, the star players is what people want to watch. Like, I want to watch Patrick Mahomes because we know that he's a once in a lifetime, you know, talent. We don't want his, you know, talents to go to waste in, you know, the Jets or Cleveland or something like that, right? Like, I feel bad for these kids who are coming in to the NFL and things like that, and their talents are going to waste in bad teams because of organization and things like that. But
I disagree with that a little bit, though. You look at Joe Burrow, who was a sensation at LSU, and he goes to the worst team by far, the Cincinnati Bengals. All of a sudden, they're relevant just because of that one guy.
Because he's there.
And I think, I think that's where it's sort of headed, where star players are starting to get highlighted, and the NFL is gonna figure that out. That okay, we need to make sure these star players stay on board, and you know they are our sort of champions for the sport, and you know for our organization. And I think people need to start. That's going to be the future. I think is going to be these stars that are going to be, you know, characters as well as sort of role models for kids going forward.
Yeah, and Major League Baseball has some amazing stars, especially in the Latino community, like Javier Baez. Natalie, I'm really curious your perspective. If you would to pick one player that the Major League Baseball should focus on, who do you think it would be?
Yeah, this is a tough question because there's like you said, there's a lot of talent out there. But one of them that I got sort of obsessed with was Mookie Betts on the Dodgers. He's amazing. All his highlights, every night there was an amazing catch out there, and he's I don't know. I think he's up there for me at least. What do you think?
I definitely agree with you. Mookie Betts has to be the best player in the game. I'm sick of hearing people talk about Mike Trout. What have the Angels done in the past decade?
He's great. Let's move on.
His numbers are good.
Great, but let's move on. I love him, but let's move on. There's so many better players out there currently. Yeah, I agree.
His swing is so smooth and the numbers are amazing, but Mookie does it all. Whether it's the field, like you said, he got another Gold Glove award this year, or even just running the bases, which is severely underrated with the younger players. All right, we're about to wrap this up here. I'm curious, Rohan, what are you looking towards for the next NBA season? Who are you excited to see, whether it's the Nets with Kyrie and Kevin Durant, or the Warriors with Stephen Clay and Dre? What are you excited to see with the new NBA season?
I'm excited for all of that, Tim. I think all the teams now have sort of an even distribution of 2 stars each, where it's like Kevin Durant, Kyrie, it's LeBron and AD, it's Steph and Clay. Like you still got Russ and you got Harden out there in Houston. So and you got Embiid and you got Simmons. So let's see what, people can start doing. I think it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a fun regular season, I think. And that has been sort of, I feel for the last couple of years in the NBA, we've been robbed of a regular season because you knew, the Warriors were going to win it with Durant and all these guys. And at the end, we got an upset with the Raptors, but sort of you were robbed of that. You sort of knew how it was going to play out. And I think now it's going to be exciting to see these guys really battle it out this year. Hopefully no major injuries. So keep everything going really well. But yeah, I think that's going to be the next exciting thing for the NBA, just watching these guys, how they're going to play together.
I definitely agree with you there. And I find it funny that you went through the list of dominant twosomes and Kawhi Leonard and Paul George didn't even come up. Yet they're right now the favorite to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
But you know what? I agree with you. I'm not even interested. Yeah.
Luka and what's his name? Yeah, Porzingis out there too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to keep it short, but I'm just gonna say I'm excited that I'll have my Christmas basketball games, and I can't wait to see my Knicks again.
Yeah. Oh man. All of a sudden.
Maybe they make it to the playoffs this year.
Yeah, 1 month NBA is going to start it
up
again.
What do you think needs to happen for them to fix it up? Just a new owner, or you think just
revamp the whole thing? Just start from scratch.
Yeah, I wish Jay-Z had bought the Knicks instead of the Brooklyn Nets. That would have been nice.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see the Nets. But all right, guys, it's been such a pleasure talking to you guys about sports. I could do this all day. But we have to get going. I know that. So, and as always, Natalie?
Keep it nerdy.
Keep it nerdy.